Hello, Ray Phoenix here. Welcome to Let's Play Spyro the Dragon, Part 15. So the next level we're going to is Lofty Castle. It's one of my favorite levels in this game. It's also one of the most abysmal levels in this game, but it's nowhere near as abysmal as Treetops, but it has a similar premise to Treetops in which it involves going on the supercharged power-up, being set through the air and knowing where to jump and get onto the correct platform. That's pretty much an art of itself. It could almost be an Olympic sport or something like that in Spyro. From the later Spyro games, there are such things as Olympic sports in the universe of Spyro. And it's a game they actually have. It's like running really fast on the ramps, like some sort of sport thing that people could have. In Spyro, this level is exactly what it says it is. It's a lofty castle. The castle is very lofty. You can see the nice, beautiful scenic vista in the background, nice, beautiful painting. Looks like it was painted by some heavenly pleasure god thing itself, but we're not going to be looking at that much because we're going to be looking at the castle itself, where there's this blue goo liquid flowing around. I still have no idea what that goo liquid is. We've seen it in every level since the beginning of this game, and we have no idea what it is. There's those Norks. They're mostly immune to fire, except for their balloons that have to be popped. And Spyro's flame breath has little spikes in it. You see, it's like sharp breath. So it's actually really good at popping those balloons. In fact, I've never noticed how sharp Spyro's breath is. It actually does have like really sharp shards in it. I think all of his enemies in this game must be like weak against sharp things. But you would never know, because there aren't any other weapons in this game other than flame breath. And actually, Spyro's horns actually are pretty sharp, and a lot of enemies could also be killed with Spyro horns. Maybe it's sharp stuff in this game that ends up killing the enemies, and that's their real, true weakness. This level is mostly consistent just a bunch of flying platforms that fly in the air, and knowing how to jump onto them. There's a lot of puzzle stuff in this level. This game isn't really considered to be a puzzle game by most people, but it very well could be considered a puzzle game to some people. I consider this to be a puzzle lock. There's a lot of puzzle solving skills and stuff in this level. This level's abysmal, mostly because it's extremely intricate. There's so many gems hiding around. You never even know where certain gems are a lot of the time. You have to know where to jump to the exact position. It's like a huge... It's almost like trying to solve nuclear bomb plans or something like that, trying to figure out where everything is. And at this point, dragons pretty much always have to say, "Oh, thank you for saving me." They don't have much stuff to talk about anymore. I'm surprised they still come up with new names for all these dragons. How many dragon names could possibly exist? There's like 80-something dragons this entire game, and that means they must come up with at least 80 different names. How many names could possibly exist in the world? I used to wonder that too when I would write like Phoenix Verse comics and stuff. I go with so many characters now. Are there even enough names in the world that exist to cover every single character I have? I don't know. Then again, how many names do exist in total, including names that still have yet to exist? Because new names get invented all the time. I was told the name Wendy didn't exist before Peter Pan came out. Peter Pan invented the name Wendy, and I recently saw that movie again, Peter Pan. It was a live-action Universal one from 2003, I think, or so. I found a VHS tape of it, and I watched it on the somewhat new VCR. Well, it's not a new VCR, obviously, because they don't make VCRs anymore. It's one that I bought from a friend just somewhat recently, and I watched Peter Pan. It's one of the few movies I still have on VHS. I don't even have an awful lot of VHS movies. That is when you compare to my DVD collection. I have hundreds of DVDs, but little to no VHS tapes. I think I might have more VHS tapes than Blu-ray discs, though, because I don't really have an awful lot of movies on Blu-ray.
Thank you for releasing me.
And VHS is actually one of the few technologies of the past I'm actually glad is obsolete. Sure, I like watching movies on VHS. I'll admit, the original Star Wars trilogy is on VHS in its original theatrical quality, so that's really good, but the technology behind it definitely was flawed. It had all the right to be replaced by DVDs, so my opinion on VHS is similar to my opinion on cable TV a lot of the time. It's one of those few things from the past that I actually don't miss. One thing from the past I do somewhat miss is dial-up internet. Dial-up internet was pretty cool. It would have been big around the time this game came out. It ties into your phone line so people can't call you and interrupt you while you're busy using the internet, so it removes distractions. And it actually got cut to the chase, so it actually took you right to your website pretty much. It's actually a pretty cool thing, something better than some people might give it credit for. Yeah, I kind of miss dial-up internet too. It was a pretty cool thing overall. So there's more of these fairies that are trapped in cages that we can break. Rescuing fairies from cages. We do similar stuff to this in other Spyro games. Pretty much every Spyro game there is has at least one level where there's something stuck in a cage. Not always fairies, but something stuck in a cage, and Spyro has to rescue it, because Spyro gets the reputation for being the fairy rescuer, the rescuer of people. Oh, rescue me, Spyro! I wonder if they'll ever make a future Spyro game where it's like Spyro, but it's set in a time of peace, kind of like Jumping Flash Free, where the game was set in a time of peace. There's no conflict, there's no villains, no nothing. So Spyro literally gets requests of things like, hey Spyro, can you clean my garage for me? Hey Spyro, can you do this for me? Hey Spyro, can you file my income taxes for me? Hey Spyro, can you solve this equation for me? Hey Spyro, can you do this for me? Yeah, imagine they made a Spyro game like that. That's exactly what Jumping Flash Free was like. Jumping Flash Free is pretty much, hey Robbit, do this for me. And Jumping Flash Free actually came out after the original Spyro the Dragon. Came out a year after the original Spyro the Dragon, if I'm not mistaken. Like very somewhat late in the PS1 timeline. I can only imagine as if PS1 because PS1 technology did get better. Games did get a lot more advanced in the later years of the PS1. And the original Jumping Flash, the first two Jumping Flash games, the only ones that ever came out at worldwide, that got worldwide releases, were only the first two, which came out in the more primitive years of the PS1, 1995, 1996. Or if they kept making more Jumping Flash games in the later years of the PS1, like what they did with the Twisted Metal games, and even made more into like the PS2 era as well too, they very well could have become very high-tech and advanced games. This day, no one's ever attempted such a thing like Jumping Flash again. And again, Spyro 3D platformers like Spyro seem to be a thing of the past too. There aren't very many new good 3D platformers anymore. I've looked at what a lot of games are in the most modern systems. It's always this stuff like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto or like those kinds of games that I don't even like games like that much. So I've never been interested in games. It's just part of the reason why I don't really own a modern system. I mean, sure, the Nintendo Switch still has like stuff like Mario and stuff like that, but I already have plenty of other Mario games on any other systems. The game market really does seem very oversaturated. Wonder if there'll be another video game crash eventually, like the one that happened in 1983. Yeah, I wonder if there'll ever be another crash of video games. I hope movie theaters become a thing of the past too. I think I already explained why, because movies don't really stay very long in movie theaters anymore, and I think movie theaters are kind of redundant now. I haven't been to a movie theater in over 4 years, and I went to see Star Wars Episode 9, and my mom doesn't even remember that movie at all, because Episode 9 of Star Wars wasn't really that great of a movie. It's probably my least favorite Star Wars movie ever. I remember one of the Red Letter Media people described Star Wars Episode 9 as being Vines the movie. So they just took a bunch of vines and made a whole movie based entirely around vines. The good thing is, it was a good lesson in what not to do making a movie. I do study those movies a lot, because I write movies myself too. I write storylines for movies and animated shows and comics and things like that. So I do study what not to do based on other people's failures. And Star Wars Episode 9 definitely is a good example of other people's failures. They clearly didn't plan the sequel trilogy out that well. I actually kind of like George Lucas's Star Wars movies a lot more. Even the prequels were way better than Star Wars Episode 9 the more I think of it now. Then again, I kind of always liked the Star Wars prequels. I never hated them like a lot of other people did. Heck, most people back in my days actually liked them, except the only person I knew that didn't like the Star Wars prequels is a principal I had in elementary school. He would punish kids for talking about the Star Wars prequels or for mentioning them if he hated them that much. He just really hated the Star Wars prequels. And he's like the same age group as those guys in the movie Fanboys that go on that epic quest to find a copy of Star Wars Episode 1 in 1999. And yet, my mom's boyfriend didn't even know Star Wars Episode 2 existed. He laughed at me in disbelief when I told him it was a real movie and I told him about what happens in it and that it's real. I bet a lot of Star Wars fans in the 90s or earlier probably would have thought the same way if you told them that was a real movie. I mean, I saw that movie in theaters a long time ago, too. My career as being a movie theater watcher, or movie goer, whatever you call it, because I go to the movies, it ended the same way it began, with watching a Star Wars movie. A not well-liked Star Wars movie, so it's like poetic justice almost. It begins where it ends. I wonder if Insomniac Games did something like that with the Spyro trilogy, because Spyro 1 is like, this game, this is a great game. Spyro 2 is quite different than Spyro 1 in a lot of ways. The level design, schematics are very different, and the whole gameplay structure is different and everything like that. But Spyro 3 is somewhat more reminiscent of the original Spyro than it is to Spyro 2, I find. So it was like again, a case of poetic justice. The series will end where it began. Ends with Spyro, we can make it looks more like Spyro 1. Some of levels in Spyro 3 actually do look somewhat like this. If I didn't know any better, I'd say there were a lot of levels in this game they probably didn't make it to the final product of this game. So instead of putting them in this game, they put them in Spyro 3 because they needed more ideas for Spyro 3 and they were running out of ideas for levels by the time they got to Spyro 3 because they really exhausted themselves with Spyro 2. Spyro 2 seems to be a popular favorite among most Spyro fans. A lot of people say Spyro 2 is the best one. And yeah, I'll admit, I kind of agree with them. It definitely is a much better game. This game is really good, but Spyro 2 is by all means a way better game in a lot of ways possible. It's definitely the most nostalgic one for me, because the first Spyro game I discovered, I first learned about Spyro from playing Spyro 2, specifically the demo for Spyro 2. So I only had a demo of that game until 2007 when I actually got a real copy of that game. And I got it at the same time as I got my DVD of Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which is still one of my favorite animated movies, and I really am a big fan of Wallace and Gromit. It was a big inspiration to my Jason and Mason series, and whenever I tell people that, they're usually left scratching their heads thinking, well, Wallace and Gromit's claymation, and Jason and Mason is not, so how is it inspired? Well, it's not really so much to do with animation styles, it's more to do with what the content of it is. That's not everything a lot of people overlook when they review shows or movies or things. When I say how they're similar, you often overlook the fact that, the animation is really just a medium of telling the story, but it's more what the story is, not so much what it appears to be or what it looks like. I think I got all the gems. This level actually is a bit stingy with gems. There's only 400 gems, not 500 gems, which is what most gem levels in this game seem to have. Some levels in this game seem to have 500 gems, I've just noticed. So my gem count is increasing quite a lot because of that, but this will likes to take it back to 400 gems. Thinks, we're already so intricate. We're already so, we're already so abysmal as is. Let's just be nice and, cut him a little slack. Let's just let him take 400 gems from this level. That sounds about fair, right? 400 gems. Spyro's going to be really rich. If only there was a way to actually utilize his gems in the next game. The next game, gems serves their currency. But again, I don't think there are any PS1 games that interact with games from forever. With game data from other games. I don't think it's possible to transfer that to Spyro 2. It'd be cool if you could, though, but Spyro 2 has everything you need to beat the game, so it'd be kind of pointless. And of course, they work very differently than how the bolts work in the Ratchet and Clank games, where it's just a downright currency that's abundant and can be found everywhere. Because even in Spyro 2, there is a limited number of gems per level. There's always a limited number of gems. It's possible to collect absolutely all of them, never see gems again. This is Ray Phoenix signing out.